Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And all right, let's be honest. This is not our favorite week that we've ever had. The men's basketball team had a really bad loss on Saturday. We'll get into that. But I'm going to go on record, Shane, and say this is the biggest episode of Wildcat Country we've done yet. And we're nearing, 150?
30 seconds in, and you're already getting on with the hyperbole, Eric.
Well, Shane, if anybody's reading the description, for this show, they're seeing we have two guests, not just the normal one. Mm-hmm. And these two guests are unbelievable. First of all, we had a chance to sit down with Bill Walton a little bit earlier today before recording these parts. And this 40 minutes is unlike anything I've ever been a part of before. Yeah.
And I think people are realizing right off the bat here, why is this episode so long? You just got your answer. Okay, so 40 minutes with Bill Walton
but it's worth listening to every. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it was something.
It was something. I mean, Shane and I both got off the interview and were like, "Holy smokes, that was."
And me always being the biggest Bill Walton fan in the world was a special thrill for me. And so
he's a really good guy, though. I mean, he is. He is what he is. But he's a very nice. He's a gentleman. Yeah. And then we had a chance to sit down with our friend of the program, Adia Barnes, coach of the women's basketball team. What a comeback they had on Friday night. One that I certainly wouldn't have bet on, and I don't think you would have either. So we're going to talk about that with her and much more. But let's get right into it. We're going to try to condense this first part just because we know our interview parts are going to go a little bit longer.
A little bit.
This is Buy or Sell and is presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. You can see if you're watching the live stream that Shane is drinking.
I'm taking another sip here. I'll take it slowly. You can
there you go, right out of his ice shaker. Yes, go to iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, to get $5 off, or you can buy these beauties at fanatics.com, where I buy a lot of my other U of A shirts. You should see my entire closet. As I was telling Shane, it's like red or blue, as you can probably tell if you watch the podcast on a weekly basis. All right, Shane. Number one, we'll just keep it simple. It's time to panic.
And you're obviously referring to the men's team, not the women's team here. Correct. And it is one of the easiest sells ever in Buy or Sell. No, I'm going to keep this simple, and I'll let you respond, and we can go into a little bit more. I feel the same way about this team now as I did a week ago.
Okay.
That they are probably not one of the 4 best teams in the country, but they're still there. They could or one of maybe 15, 20 teams that could reach the Final Four if given the opportunity, if they play their best. So, look, they're in an awful shooting slump. I think that they realized the hard way. And I think this loss was coming, by the way. They could have gotten easily swept by the Washington schools, and they're lucky to split, really. But I think they had learned, and really in Tommy Lloyd's first loss at McHale, they learned or were reminded that the McHale Center crowd is not always going to be able to drag them past the finish line. And look, they're in an awful shooting slump. They've been in an awful shooting slump for 2.5 games now, starting with the second half of ASU. They'll shoot their way out of it. They're not as athletically gifted as last year. They're maybe not quite as deep, and they're defensively not as good, but we've seen when they play their best, they can beat anyone. They already have beaten very good teams. So long story short, Eric, I think this too shall pass. The shooting slump will pass. And I feel the same way about this team now as I did a week ago.
Okay, well, that's one of us. It's not going to be the easiest sell for me in Wildcat Country history. It's a moderate sell. The time to panic is this weekend or next week if Arizona struggles again this weekend against the Oregon schools. You got to blow away Oregon State. They blew away Oregon State last year. You got to blow them away. Even though, I love Wayne Tinkle, one of the great coaches in the Conference of Champions.
Best coach in Conference of Champions.
Outside of Tommy Lloyd, so he's number 2. But if Arizona struggles against Oregon State, I'll be really concerned if they get blown out by Oregon. Not just a close game. And we'll make our picks at the end of the show. Then it would be time to panic.
Well, if you're concerned as far as panicking, as far as the Pac-12 regular season titles in jeopardy, sure, absolutely, panic all day. I'm thinking because look, Arizona's over the years they've gotten plenty of conference championships, conference tournament titles, regular season tournament titles like the Maui this year and the one in Las Vegas last year. I don't take any of those for granted. Those are all great, and those add to the program's prestige and recruiting pitches and all that. But as a fan of a program that hasn't been to the Final Four in now 22 years, that's what I'm most interested in. And I think that health permitting, this team can still, like, they could go and lose to both the Oregon schools. I hope that doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen, but it doesn't change how I feel about this team. I still think they're probably not a Final Four team, but I think that they could be if they click on all cylinders. If their guards play above, their usual output. If Kerr's hitting shots, if Pella's hitting shots, if Courtney Ramey's hitting shots, and they're able to hit their free throws. But that was another thing. Omar Ballo has not been a good free throw shooter this year, and that was a big deal against Washington State. He was a 70% shooter last year. You couldn't hack-a-shack him. Now you sort of can.
But, well, he wasn't feeling. I mean, he wasn't right.
He wasn't. Yeah, he went to the hospital earlier. Yeah. No, I understand. I'm just long-winded way to say, if this team clicks on all cylinders, I think they're one of a bunch of teams that can make a run to the Final Four. And it ultimately, Eric, is as great as it would be to get another conference title. As a fan, that's what I'm most invested in, because it's been way too long since Arizona's accomplished that.
Yeah. What has it been? 2001?
2001.
22 years.
A game that Bill Walton called.
Wow. That's crazy. Number 2, Shane. This weekend against the Oregon schools will go a long way in seeing whether this team is a contender or a pretender. I'm going to sell that one as well, mainly along the same lines of all of the gibberish I just spewed out. Okay. But also because, it's a long season, and this team is going to look better or look different for better or worse come March than how they'll look this week. I'm really interested to see how they're going to come out. Their slump could continue, and they could get a split or get swept in Oregon. They could also beat both schools by 30. Neither would surprise me terribly. Okay. I don't know if it was so much, because a lot of times I do think this team gets a bit complacent. I think they did last year too. I don't really think it was that against Washington. I think they're just, it's really simple. They can't shoot right now. Yeah. And that is going to pass. It's going to pass. They're a better shooting team than this. Pelle Larsson is a better 3-point shooter than we've seen most of the season. And then there are countless examples of that. Courtney Ramey's looked off for a while now. He'll get it together. So yeah, I certainly feel better and be reassured of everything that I've just said if they go in and they beat the Oregon schools and beat them soundly, like they probably should, or at least, they should beat Oregon State soundly, and they should find a way to win at Oregon. Okay. But if their struggles continue for another couple of games, I'm not going to push the panic button. So I don't know. So will it go a long way? Probably not. In other words, are we going to remember these games when the NCAA tournament rolls around? Vaguely. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to buy this one, that it will this weekend will go a long way in seeing whether this team is a contender or pretender. I think if they bounce back and sweep, we throw that storyline under the rug and we focus on UCLA next week. And if they don't sweep, we're going to have more conversations about it next week. Simple as that.
That's fair.
Number 3. So Chris Beard at Texas has been dismissed. Texas is a top job, just based on the resources that they have. So number 3, Shane, we should be mildly concerned that Texas might be interested in Tommy Lloyd, and that Tommy Lloyd might be interested in Texas. By yourself.
So Chris Beard made about $5 million a year at Texas. Mm-hmm. Tommy Lloyd this year is going to make all told about $3.6 million. It'll be $3.7 million the following year. So there is a difference there. And look, Arizona could give me yet another contract extension and maybe try to compete with that. But if it just comes down to money, Texas is going to win. Texas has more money. Yeah. They are a top program in basketball for that reason, primarily. In terms of prestige in the history of the program, Arizona's better. So I'm going to sell it just because I don't think he's going to be terribly interested. And I think for a number of reasons that, he has a son, Liam, who plays college ball up in Flagstaff, which isn't too far away. He's got I think a college-age daughter and a high school-age daughter. So do he and his family want to move again after 2 years after being in the same spot for 20? There's that aspect of it. Is he interested in the job because he thinks he can be successful there after what he's built already in Tucson? And of course, the question, does Texas want him? And will he be their number one choice? But look, if it all comes down to money, and it always is a little bit about the money, right? But if it all comes down to money, then I will buy that it's a concern. But I'm going to sell it because I do think there are larger concerns for Tommy Lloyd, even if he does get another contract extension, another pay boost out of this. I don't see it happening for a number of reasons, but I also can't read the guy's mind. And if it does come down to money, then it can be a concern.
If all was equal, Shane, if money was equal, which is a better job, Arizona or Texas?
I got to think Arizona. I mean, I know I'm horrible.
I would too.
Look, in football, it's no contest, obviously.
Yeah, but does Texas have a basketball tradition? I don't think they do.
They've had some good teams over the years, for sure.
Yeah, but nothing that's...
they're not. I mean, they're not. First of all, Texas is not a football school, and in Texas they call it UT Austin because there's a bunch of UTs up there. But UT Austin is not a basketball school; it's a football school. Arizona is a basketball school. Basketball is king in Tucson, so there's that aspect of it. There's, do you want to move your family? Do you want to stop the momentum you've already built with this program and already shown you can win? So I doubt it. And then there's the question of would he be Texas's first choice anyway? But again, at the end of the day, Texas would be able to find a way to pay Tommy Lloyd more money than Arizona will. So from that perspective, it could be a concern. And
that's where I'm mildly concerned. So I'm going to buy this. That's where I phrase it right. Mildly concerned. Yeah, just because if Texas throws him $6 million and Tommy can almost double his salary, you have to listen to it. I believe Arizona would step up and get the resources to get it at least close. And I think if it was close, I think if I were Tommy, especially considering that the pack, whatever it is going to be weaker without UCLA, I would stay I would stay put. That's just me. Okay. Number 4, Shane, since we're having Adia Barnes on later in the show, the Oregon State comeback last Friday, which they were down 12 with under 4 minutes left. ESPN's probability had them as a 99% chance to lose.
Garbage.
I know.
Win probability is, by the way, win probability is not a statistic. It is a guess. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
The Oregon State comeback very well might have changed the trajectory of the women's basketball season. Buy or sell?
I'll buy that. I think that it was an important win, not only because it was a game they should have won, but because I think they finally started to click. I mean, the Oregon game was outstanding as well, and I think there's a good chance that if they lose to Oregon State, they probably get swept on the weekend. But the team's starting to come around. They got bounced by Kansas at home a few weeks ago, which was an awful loss, an unexpected loss, especially in front of a really good home court advantage that Adia Barnes has built in Tucson. But then they come back and they beat Baylor in what was essentially a road game. Lose at Stanford. Stanford's great. That's not a big deal. But then I think that finding a way to win that game. Look, if they had just beaten Oregon State in a close, run-of-the-mill close game, that's one thing. But to do it in the fashion they did, I think this team is finally starting to gel. There's a lot of new pieces, even though Kate and Shayna are still there. Sam Thomas isn't there for the first time in 6 years, which I think was a big loss both on and off the court. A lot of freshmen, a lot of transfers. So I think the team is finally starting to gel and doing it in a way that where you get to win and celebrate in front of your home crowd, and then do it again 2 nights later against a very good Oregon team was massive. So absolutely, that it could be the difference between borderline top 25 and eventually entering the top 10, which I predicted Arizona would do at some point before the season started.
I think it was very key, Shane. I'm going to buy it because I think it's very key for Arizona going a long ways towards hosting a regional once again on campus.
Absolutely.
As a top 4 seed. I think if they lose that game, it very well could have snowballed into the Oregon game on Sunday.
Yep.
And then you're talking about, okay, where's Arizona going to play in their first game in March Madness? Now, Wildcats have the momentum. They go on the road to the mountain schools this week. Interesting that ASU forfeited both games because they don't have enough healthy players. Yeah,
which could impact Arizona in terms of both those teams are getting, or at least their second opponent is going to get a bit more rest.
And ASU's on deck after that for the Wildcats. So going to be the next 3 games very interesting. Arizona sweeps them. I think they're in a very good spot to hopefully get a top 4 seed.
And unlike the men's basketball in the Pac-12, the women's side, you have a lot of very good teams and a lot of opportunity for some really quality wins. The women's side, they're still in the 20s in net, so they have a ways to go. Probably if they want to climb into that top 4 seed range, but they're going to have a ton of opportunities to get there. In this game of Utah coming up in particular, Utah's a top 10 team out of nowhere. That's going to be a big one. So if they can find a way to win that one, that'll definitely help their cause in March. And like you said, the women's side, you get to host 2 games if you're a top 4 seed, and that's a big deal. So I think it's a bigger deal on that side in that game than on the men's side.
No doubt. Coming up next, I don't even know how to preface this next interview. Bill Walton,
try.
You know who he is. If you're listening to this podcast, you know who Bill Walton is. It is 40 minutes of just, I don't even know how to describe it. So I'm going to let you guys come up with it. Let us know what you think on Twitter and the comments on YouTube. And then, of course, it would be great to talk to Coach Adia Barnes from the women's basketball team here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we would train together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Krakowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, you and I at some points have come up with like a dream guest list of who we would love to
have. Yeah, here we go. I can't wait. I'm here at Wildcat Country. I finally made it. Oh my gosh. It is so beautiful here. You guys are handsome as can be, but when I think of Wildcat Country, I think of Saguaro East. I think of the Catalina Mountains. I think of Mount Lemmon. I think of Catalina State Park. I think of the Tortolita Mountains. I think of the West Tucson Mountains, the Santa Rita Mountains down in the south, the Chiricahua, and I think of all the beautiful people and the places and in the Valley of Fire there, Ring of Fire, and it's just a real thrill to be on your show here, Shane and Eric. It's an honor and a privilege. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
Well, we are as well. Bill Walton, one of the great characters, one of the great players in the history of college basketball, one of the great broadcasters, and obviously among the great characters in the history of basketball, pro and college. We are very glad to have you on the program. Now, first question for you. Yes. You always refer to the Pac-12 as the Conference of Champions. Do you believe this Arizona team is good enough to at the end of the season, potentially be on the mantle for the Conference of Champions all time, i.e. a championship contender?
Yes, why not? The key is, though, if one of their star players will step to the front and scream out to the world, I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. Because if your best players don't outplay their best players, you have no chance whatsoever at succeeding. And basketball, at the same time as being complex and comprehensive of all the elements of life, it's also a very simple game. A simple game where you have to be in shape, you have to have a great culture, style, and identity, you have to have a great leader on the court, off the court, you have to have a great foundation, you have to have a great basis. And what's not to like about everything U of A for so many years? But the key is that you can do it. You can be the guy who delivers peak performance on command. Now, I thought last year's team could have, should have, would have won the championship. But then they come in against Houston and they can't make a shot. And so you've got to have that guy. And whether it's going to be Azuolas Tubelis, whether it's going to be Umar Ballo, whether it's going to be Kirk Kriisa or Ramey or Pelle Larson or Adama Ball or Cedric Henderson, Kylan Boswell. I mean, it's a long list of guys you can choose from. Tommy Lloyd is fantastic. Dave Hickey, incredible. Bobby Robbins, over the top. The Big Red Army of the West, unmatched. And so here's the guys. Now you got to look around and you say, okay, who's going to do what? Who's got a game? Who's in shape? Who can play? Who really wants this? I mean, it takes everything you have to win the championship. There's other good teams out there. I mean, the best team I saw early on this year was UConn, but now they've lost 2 games. That Big East is looking better and better as this season goes on. Providence has got a great team. Sean Miller doing a marvelous job at Xavier. And so there's, lots of good teams out there. And I was stunned. I was stunned when I was just there this last weekend when I saw that Washington State, a very good team with lots of talent and good players, comes in and just takes it to the Wildcats and sent the Cats whimpering out into the desert at the end of the day. But I'm always shocked and stunned whenever Arizona loses at home. I mean, that home court advantage, that is spectacular. Arizona has the fifth longest winning streak, home court winning streak in the history of college basketball after Kentucky, St. Bonnie's, UCLA, Cincinnati, and then Arizona. I was there the night they lost their 50th straight game to Oregon, which was really a turning point, a swing moment in the history of the Conference of Champions. And then I was there this last weekend when the 28-game home court winning streak was just put back in their face. And I did not see the spark. I did not see the fire. I did not see the volcanic eruption. That crowd takes for granted. And the crowd is remarkable in so many ways. But this crowd has been so good for so long, 38 years of leading the Conference of Champions in attendance. And they know what they have to do, but they cannot do it by themselves. And that's where the mark of a champion is the ability to be self-motivated and to have the character, the foundation, the spirit, and the soul in conjunction with the mental acuity and the emotional commitment that we're going to get this done. And I just saw a team that was kind of walking through it and thinking, okay, Washington State, they never win here. They just won it 4 years ago there in 2019. Ernie Kent brought them in. And, it's never easy. And the better you get, the harder it is. Because when you're a great team, when you're a great program like Arizona, you're going to see everybody's best. And that's what you want. You don't want to come out there and just mop up on the opposition because they don't think they have to play very well to beat you. No, man, you want a great game where you got to be at the top. You got to be at your absolute best and epitomize the upper tier of the pyramid of success, which is skill, physical fitness, commitment to the team, poise, confidence, competitive greatness. Be at your best when your best is needed. But all of that is built on the lower two tiers of the pyramid of success. And the pyramid of success was created by John Wooden, who did not like the mandatory grading system because he thought that effort was much more important, effort and preparation, than actual talent and scoreboard and measurement and being able to take it or pass a test. And so he came up with things like industriousness and enthusiasm, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, intentness, initiative, alertness, and self-control. And while all that stuff is super easy to memorize and to talk about, try putting it into practice. And that's where the champions come. And that's why you need that great coach. And when you think of what Arizona has had, now the Fox, Fred Snowden, that guy was awesome. I got to play in McHale in its second year in existence. They started it in 72, they finished it, opened it up in 73, and then I got to play in it in 74. I was offered to have my own ABA team anchored in McHale. Reggie Jackson and Gary Walker from up in Phoenix, they wanted to have an ABA team where I was going to be a part owner and be like, the guy, and then they were going to let me pick the coach and everybody else. But I turned them down. And nobody has made more mistakes in life than me. But to see that then the vision, and I don't know who did this. I got to learn this backstory. But who was the visionary that hired Lute Olson? And Lute Olson, with Jerry Colangelo, what they have done for the state of Arizona is just over the top. I mean, these are the spiritual and religious and the economic and cultural icons that have formed the state of Arizona as we know it today. And then Lute's there forever. And then they get Sean Miller literally right away. I mean, it wasn't straight. There was a couple guys in there, I think, but inconsequential. And then Sean Miller was just phenomenal and gets them going there. Very, very close. It's hard, guys. It is super hard. You don't just say, okay, we're going to win the championship this year. Now, it was different what we had at UCLA, but we didn't know. We didn't know how hard it was because Coach Wooden was so good that he just created this atmosphere, culture, world, platform that he taught us how to think like champions, how to play like champions, how to dream like champions, and ultimately how to become the champion. But that was just the standard operating deal there at UCLA in those days. And then everything has changed. But I remember when I was at UCLA and I first met Lute Olson, because Lute Olson was in Los Angeles at the time as a high school teacher and coach. And he was very interested in all things John Wooden. And John Wooden was so accessible. And so these two guys, they got together constantly. And then Lute, he moves on to Long Beach City College. And then he moves on to Long Beach State. And this whole time, that this is all happening while I'm in Southern California, and Lute Olson is a legendary figure before I don't know why you would leave here to go up to Iowa. I mean, some things are just beyond belief or description and comprehension, right? Now, certainly the move from Iowa to Tucson, that is a very clear deal. But at that time, Tucson, it just wasn't what it is today. And to see all the cultural amenities and the physical development, and to see what's happened up across that mountain, and really throughout the entire community, and the way they built up the university and the neighborhoods, Sam Hughes neighborhood. I don't know what the neighborhood is just east of the hospital, but that is just a fantastic neighborhood, just so close. And those are the kind of neighborhoods that I like living in, because where we live is we're right in the thick of things, and that causes some problems, but it also has a lot of benefits, and we love it. And there's few things I love more on earth than coming over to Tucson, because it's the place in the Conference of Champions where everybody in town knows everything that's going on. And you guys have a lot to do with this here in Wildcat Country. Your ability to share the news and spread the word as to what's going on. And so, I mean, when I get off that airplane at Tucson Airport, I mean, immediately, Bill, we're going to win tonight. I'm trying to get my rent-a-car. Bill, how about this injury? How's Tubelis doing? What's up with Balo? How come Kirk Kriisa can't make a three? And and then you're coming in, and then you get to the hotel, and it's, oh my gosh, and all these different things that are going on, and everybody knows everything. And I've been part of other situations like that before with incredible fan bases. Our high school program here in San Diego, Helix High School, which a phenomenal program, culture, history, everything. And it was like that then. And then to go to UCLA, over the top, to go to the Blazers, where, man, we set all kinds of records that still stand to this very day, to be on the Boston Celtics, and then to be part of the Grateful Dead. And then it's all so very similar, leadership, teams, and players. And then that brings the fans, and the fans have stayed there. It's just been absolutely remarkable, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. Bear down. Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
We are Wildcat Country.
I love it. That might be our new intro. So U of A, they got you a custom chair for this Washington State game.
The chair.
You're typically sitting on 3 chairs for a game, right? But they got you a custom one. Did that fit you okay?
The chair fits perfectly. And with the School of Fine Arts there at the U of A, what Gabby did, and what Colin and Karen and Mike did. I hope I got Karen's name right. If I don't, I apologize. But the School of Fine Arts, what they did to put that together for me, because the chair is critical for me. I mean, I'm 6'11". Yeah. I've got a adult lifetime of orthopedic challenges that have really destroyed my life in so many different ways, but I'm doing fantastic now. And, health is everything. And one of the things, one of the mantras I live by is failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And so when my spine did fail on February 24th, 2008, not that I remember the date, but I'm there, and I can't move, I can't function, I can't do anything. My life is over. And I go to the doctor. I get to the doctor. Jim Gray finds my doctor, Steve Garfin, UC San Diego Health. And I go in there, and he looks at me, he says, "Man, what's happened to you?" I said, "I can't move, I can't function. I don't know, it's just awful." He said, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And I described what I do, which is fly across the country all the time and live in a world built for preschool children. And he said, "Well, you got to stop doing that immediately. We got to replace your knee. We got to reconstruct and rebuild and basically replace your spine." And so over the course of all these years now, I've had 39 orthopedic operations.
Goodness gracious.
So one of the things that I've learned, so as I've gone through my life, because I've been chasing this basketball dream for, let's see, I'm 70 now, and I started when I was 8. So I'm going to say, with my mathematical computer like mine, I'm going to say that's 62 years that I've been trying to make this all happen. And so I grew up in a culture of a non-athletic culture. My parents have zero interest in sports, none. Never shot a basket with my dad, never talked sports with my parents. And we didn't have a TV growing up, but I had an incredible coach from the very beginning, 8 years old, Rocky, just phenomenal. And so, here I was trying to make it. And I thought over the success that I had early on, we had a lot of success and won a lot, set a lot of records. And so I thought I knew what it took. But it wasn't until my spine failed that I understood the ever-expanding concept of everything. Because you think you know what it takes. You think I got everything covered. I got this, right? And then all of a sudden your spine fails and everything changes. And so that's when I realized the expanding nature of everything. And one of those everything elements is you got to have a chair that fits you. Because when you sit, okay, are you guys parents? You guys have children?
I have a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Okay, so, and that 3-year-old goes to school, right? And that 3-year-old sits in a little tiny chair. And just like those basketball players come out and sit in those little tiny chairs, which is the most ridiculous thing on earth. There's got to be a sponsored element in there somehow, because nobody would ever say with credibility or integrity that that's good for you, right? So imagine the chair that your 3-year-old sits in, and then you go try to sit in that. And now that's the same way it is for me to sit in the chair that you sit in. And that's why I have my special chair. And I'm sitting in a special chair right now. They're all measured out for my height and size and weight. And then that's what happened at the U of A. I mean, the kindness of Matt Enzer and the School of Fine Arts, Nate Wiekers, and Dave Hickey and Bobby Robbins, they were all involved, and all the different people who were there. It was just spectacular for me because I love my chair and I love being comfortable, and I have to sit down most of the time. I mean, I can walk. I have not had any parts of my body amputated yet. I've had a lot of stuff cut off. I mean, I'm basically one big giant barnacle. But here's a situation where I have not had my feet amputated or my arms amputated or my head amputated or anything like that. But I can walk for function. I don't walk for pleasure. I don't walk for exercise. I don't walk to go exploring. What I can, but what I've learned to do is focus on what I can do. And what I can do for movement is that I can go in the water, in the pool, I can go in the weight room, and I can ride my bike. And so that's what I concentrate on. And that's what I recommend all these players from the U of A work on, although they have the great advantage of being young and healthy and vibrant and able to do basically whatever. I mean, this is a program because of guys like Justin and Chris Rounds, that these are the winners of the genetic lottery. The partnership that U of A has with Nike is just over the top, incredibly valuable. And because the players want to go and be a part of Nike. And here's a situation where they all come to U of A to be part of something so very special. And I was just in the Richard Jefferson practice gym the other day. We don't spend too much time in there because most of my time with the team is spent in McHale because I'm there on the days of the game. I'm always in town the night before, always try to get a good meal. Kingfisher is one of my favorite places right now on Grant. And so here's a situation where, I get there the night before, get a good night's sleep in the wonderful hotel, wake up to the sunrise with the mountains. Right now, they got snow on the top of them. It's just spectacular. And I start dreaming. I get over to McHale. But this last week, I was in there in the daytime because of the travel schedule for me. And so we had practice in the Richard Jefferson building and the gymnasium, which he gave $3.5 million of his own to build this magnificent place for other people to chase their dreams and create their dreams, and to see all the pictures of the history. and all the different stuff that's gone down in that remarkable university, and the people who have given their lives so that the next generation coming along can have the opportunities, can have the chance to make it all work for them. So it's super fun, and it is a thrill for me to be a part of it, because I've just witnessed all these different teams and the changing nature and how much fun it's been. And TJ McConnell and Caleb Tarczewski and Deuce Ristich, but really, I mean, Richard Jefferson, all the guys that played with Luke. One of our sons played at the University of Arizona.
I went to school there when Luke was there. Yep.
Yeah, yep. No, it was incredible. Because it just, Luke Olson was just God and king. And every time I'm in town, I always try to call Kelly and catch up with her and that angel of mercy and what she's been able to do to keep Luke going and keep that big smile on his face. There's nothing like it, man. I'm madly in love with my wife, and I know how important that is. So I'm just super, super lucky. What a team, what a program, and what a dream, in so many different ways. You've got the desert, you've got the people, you got the facilities, you got the fans, you have the sky, you have the mountains, you have the solar energy, all the things that I believe in and live for. It's just all right there. It all rolls into one.
Hey, Bill, the game they lost against Washington State, and they almost lost to Washington 2 days earlier. Just in your experience, could it be a positive thing to lose a game like that, especially in front of your home fans, and realize our fans aren't going to drag us past the finish line every time? And is this something that may ultimately benefit them as they go deeper into the season, into the NCAA tournament?
Shane, I never buy that.
No? Losing's never good in any context ever.
Not for me.
Okay. Maybe you didn't do a lot of losing at UCLA, so.
Not for me, but everybody's different, and motivation was never my problem.
Yeah.
My problems have been health. My problems have been the fact that I spent half my adult life in the hospital, and I was born with birth defects. I was first injured when I was 13. I was playing against some really old guys. They were in their 30s. I was torching them. They didn't like it. They took me down with a high-low. I needed my first surgery. I turned 14 in between around the time of the surgery. And then as soon as I had that surgery, I started playing against NBA players. But my biggest challenge in life has been my speech impediment and the fact that I'm a lifelong stutterer. And the notion that I could ever become a broadcaster, it's just that is as far a stretch as you could ever reach for, because I couldn't say a word. I couldn't say hello. I couldn't say thank you. You look at the old films. I couldn't talk until I was 28 years old. Most of my friends liked me a lot more before I learned how to talk.
I doubt that, Bill. I doubt that. Hey, I have a question for you as far as the Conference of Champions. We love how you refer to it as that. I know all the fans love it.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
But when your alma mater and USC leave next year, is whatever is left in the pack still considered the Conference of Champions?
Yes. Because the lead over the Big Ten, the number 2 conference, is so big that even if we lose, even if UCLA and USC move on, and they take their, I'm going to say they have a combined between 130 and 140, 230 and 240. The spread over the Big Ten, the Conference of Champions, Pac-12, is bigger than that. And so it'll still be the Conference of Champions.
But how much of a shame is it going to be to not get what I consider the best rivalry in the West, Arizona and UCLA, twice a year? Because that's what I'm going to miss most when they're gone.
Well, I am opposed. I'm opposed to USC and UCLA moving. I have nothing to do with USC. I have great respect for them. A lot of friends there, great school, great people, great programs, great everything. But, I went to UCLA. And so I can speak to what I want for UCLA. And I like the Pac-12 Conference Champions the way it is. But I'm not in charge.
Yeah. Well, you should be.
If I were in charge, things would be different.
Yeah. Well, I ask my last question for you, Bill.
Take all the time you want. I've carved out my day for the.
I certainly appreciate that, but I think we got like 12 minutes on our Zoom chat left, so I'll try to keep it limited to that. But I just want to ask you a little bit more about Tommy.
Get 7 or 8 questions in during that time.
That's fine. But Tommy Lloyd, your thoughts on Tommy Lloyd? Just getting to know him. Is he a winner? Is he a guy who's going to bring a national championship to Tucson this year or at some point down the line?
Yes to all of those questions. He's fantastic. I've known him for 20 years, since he got on the Gonzaga stage. And he's just a fantastic dude. You know, he has everything that I'm looking for in a leader. He's a good person. His life is based on character, standards, values, credibility, and integrity. He can inspire. He can teach. He can lead. He can build. He can develop. And he can get all these, and he has the tools to do that. I mean, what they did in Gonzaga, they had no tools. I mean, how many people have you met in your life who have come up to you and say, "Hey, man, I'm moving to Spokane today"?
Well, my brother-in-law and his wife. There are 2 of them, but yes, I get your point.
Your sister away from you.
My brother-in-law and his my sister's husband and his wife. He went to Gonzaga Law School, and they actually love it up there. But I take your point.
Spokane today is very nice, but the vision. If you would ask the question, okay, let's go to Tucson and build one of the world's great basketball programs and teams. If you'd ask that in the early 1980s. People would have you committed, but somebody has to be first. And Luke was the guy. I mean, Fred Snowden, he had the vision, but he didn't have the ability, and the world was different then. I mean, it was, and so then, but Lute Olson came in and took it over the top. And now the challenge is to keep that going and keep building on it. And, you know, UCLA, a school that I'm close to because I went there, my wife went there, our daughter went there, all our best friends went there. And so they've got it going again because of a great coach in Mick Cronin. And so Tommy Lloyd's a great coach. He's a fantastic human being. He's interesting. He's curious, a great storyteller, and he knows talent. He can look at some 15-year-old and say, okay, man, this guy's got it. Now, you look at some of these winners of the genetic lottery. You look at Mohamed Gay from Washington State and how quickly he's come along in a very short time. You look at what Umar Ballo has done. You look at the development of all these guys. I mean, go back before Tommy got there. And, you know, the slogan for the U of A was a player's program. Right. And they would run that video that was just so inspiring and everything. And now they got the video, which is cool as can be, about the guys out in the desert meeting all each other and coming together and really that big push toward the volcanic eruption for the opening tip. And so that ability to develop talent, to identify talent, to be able to recruit, and that's Tommy Lloyd, to be able to teach and to be able to get them to commit to the greater goal of what needs to be done. And that whenever there's a group dynamic, in business, in your show, in whatever you do in a group, there's 3 elements that you have to have: sacrifice, discipline, and honor. And if you have those 3 things, you're going to have a chance. If you have guys coming in with individual agendas, I mean, you watch great basketball, right? And the ball's moving and people are happy for other people's success. Somebody makes a shot, you're all giving them a high five and everything. Somebody breaks down defensively and the team rotates and covers for him. A guy gets open, you pass him the ball, he gets hot, you keep coming back to him. That's the mark of a championship team that has sacrifice, discipline, and honor as their foundation. Now, you watch bad basketball, it's one guy dribbling the whole time, everybody else yelling and screaming for the ball. Nobody likes each other. There's no respect anywhere, and everybody's got their own plan to go out there and do it. And that's why teams lose. And then they wonder. And it amazes me when I watch basketball. And I watch a lot of basketball. And my wife, Lori, just the greatest everything ever, our CEO, chief everything officer. She liked basketball a lot more before she met me. And so I am amazed because I don't understand. I grew up in the team concept. All the great teams I've been on were all about the team concept. I don't understand why these guys who are just getting started, maybe not even are very good, but they're trying to play the game-winning shot. They're trying to play like they're Michael Jordan, like they're Kareem, like they're Larry Bird, like they're LeBron James, like they're Kevin Durant or Giannis or Steph Curry, and they're just getting started. And it doesn't work that way. Those guys, they weren't born that way. The guy who was the best from birth was Kareem. Kareem never played a game, never in his whole life where he wasn't the number one focus of the other team. And so, but everybody else has to work their way up to it. Bill Russell, he got cut from his high school team. Michael Jordan, same thing. Wilt had his challenges, not very many challenges. Oscar was right up there at the top too, and then, but it takes all you've got just to stay on the beat. And you've got to listen to your coach, because if you don't trust, admire, respect, appreciate, and believe in your coach, it's never going to work. And so that's why these guys who come up so young and everybody is telling them that they're the greatest thing they're the next great player, and they've got to, score all these points and accumulate all these numbers and statistics, because that's what they're going to talk about on Sports Center. That if you don't do that, you're not any good. That's just not the way I look at the world. And I look at the world in terms of coming together, working as a unit for the common good. In San Diego, the motto of our town in San Diego is, there is no greater cause than the public good. And so you can take that, there is no greater cause than the U of A winning the championship. Just apply that to the group. And then if everybody believes that, if everybody buys into that, then you got a real chance. And that's the competing forces. Tommy Lloyd saying one thing, all their relatives are saying another thing. The fans are saying one thing. And it's just, so, you've got to be able to focus, to concentrate, and to put yourself in a position where you're doing the right thing every moment. It's because life ultimately comes down to choices and decisions. And if you make the right ones, good things are going to happen. You make the wrong things, you're going to end up on the outs and nobody's going to be happy.
Bill, I'll say this,
I'm happy when we win. I'm happy when there's great basketball. I'm happy, when it's just an opportunity to make a positive difference in the world. That's what I'm always looking for.
You on TV, you are quite the character on this interview. You've been incredible, just great. Shane and I have learned so much about life in addition to basketball. But I do want to say one more thing. In the couple times that I've met you over the last 20 years in person, you've been nothing but a gentleman, and I was always grateful for that. Even as a college student, running into you at Payway after watching.
Payway, yeah, is Payway still there?
It's still there on University Avenue.
I got to get in there more, man.
You and Lori were there. It was after, I think it was Luke's senior year, and it would have been my sophomore year. And I remember seeing you after the game. It was just you and Lori and me and one of my buddies, and you were nothing but a class act then. And Shane and I are most grateful to have you on, and we really hope to do this again sometime soon.
Call me anytime. So one of the coolest moments in our lives was to be able to come over to U of A when Luke was playing there, and just then to still go around today. When you go into a restaurant or go into a hotel, they'll have posters of the team and all the guys and jerseys of everybody. And I remember as they all made the transition, because when you have the good fortune of a great coach, mentor, leader, teacher, parent as a child, and then it leads to dreams becoming true and becoming reality. So that happened with all those young men. and Richard and Channing and Luke and Gilbert and Jason, and I mean, literally all these guys, Ricky Anderson, they're all just doing really, really well in life, and you love to see that. And I remember, because they would all spend their summers here at our house, and they would just all be living right here, which was fantastic for me. Lori would have a different answer, but that's fine. And so here it was. Then they make the transition, and they're all professionals now, right? And so Lori, who's not a morning person, I'm up well before the dawn. I can get to sleep at night. Staying asleep is another thing. So Lori would come walking out well into the morning hours, deep into mid-morning now. She would come out, and they'd just be all sprawled out from a night of summertime fun and everything. They're professionals now, but there's cans and there's bottles and there's pizza boxes and there's everything all over everywhere, right? And Lori, one day she came out and she just lost it. And we had beds everywhere for people to just sleep in, couches, and they're all sprawled out. They're barely stirring themselves. My day's half over, right? But that's the kind of stuff that I love. That's the kind of stuff that I lived for, being part of the team. And so this one particular day, Lori comes out, she looks at this house just a mess, which is fine when you're a guy, right? But when you're the mom and you're the wife and you're the girl, that's not what they're looking for. And so she starts yelling and barking at him, and she says, you just signed a $50 million contract in the NBA. What are you doing living on our couch? And then you just signed an $80 million contract in the NBA. What are you doing here, making a mess of our house? And I'm trying to get her to calm down a little bit, because I was having the time of my life.
I bet you, I can only imagine. Now our Zoom is running out. We want to thank you. Bill, thank you so much. We're most grateful.
Wildcat Country, bear down. Yeah, I would try to make the gang sign, but my hands don't really work.
We got it for you.
We got it covered for you. There you go.
Is that it right
there you
there?
go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good enough.
I got it.
Thanks, Bill.
I was having my picture made with Bobby Robbins the other day, and I saw him. He was next to me, and he was making something. And I said, "Please, Bobby, no gang signs in the picture." Put the big claw up there. Wildcat Country. Yeah, where dreams become reality, where we come to grow, and where the deal goes down. Thanks for having me, Eric. Thanks for having me, Shane. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
We are too, Bill.
If you're looking to add value to your sports cards, you've got to check out dtsportscards.com. They're an authorized dealer for PSA, which means you'll get great prices on your submissions if you go through them. And for just $2 a card, DT Sports Cards will take a close look at each card you submit and let you know whether it's worth grading. I just submitted some high-end hockey cards. They took a very close look, said they're good to go, and they all earned a PSA 10 grade, which tripled the value of each card. DT Sports Cards is located right here in Arizona. They provide quick, personalized service through email or direct messages. Find them online at dtsportscards.com and check them out on Instagram at dt_sportscards.
She needs no introduction. I'll just say this, Shane. There are not 5 better basketball coaches in the country than Adia Barnes. From what they've done, what you've done, Coach. No, seriously, what you took over and to what it is now. There are not 5 programs, men or women, in the country with coaches that can say that.
Usually Eric engages in hyperbole, but I think he's spot on in this case.
Thank you, Shane. Yeah. All right, Coach.
The other one is right down the hall, right?
Tommy's great.
He's okay too.
Yeah, he's real. Yeah. All right, Coach. I'm gonna start you with this one. This is kind of a weird one, but you know me. You come on with us. You're always honest. So there's 3 minutes and 36 seconds left on Friday night. ESPN's probability gives you a 0.3% chance to win. Really? Honestly, you were a 99.7%
means
chance
nothing, Eric.
That Oregon State was going to win.
Yeah. Wait, how do you find out that stuff? Where do you get that?
It's on ESPN.com. They along with the game, the box score, they have the win probability as like a running total, and so it was Oregon State was at 99.7% at that point in time.
There was 3:36 left in the fourth, and Madison Connor just got an offensive rebound, and you had a 0.3% chance to win. So in your head, you have to be thinking, all right, on to Oregon, right? Like, you couldn't have thought you're going to come back and win that game, right?
No, that was tough. Being down 12 with 3 minutes to go is like a long shot. Like, that's really hard. But then, like, we got forced a couple of turnovers, got some momentum, but that's a a steep hill to climb for sure.
So, Adia, and thanks again for coming on with us. We appreciate it. We're sorry it's been a little bit longer than it usually has, but we hit a rough spot a few weeks ago against Kansas. Had the big win over Baylor, great comeback win over Oregon State, and then a fantastic game. We were talking to Haley or SID just before you came on about how just great a basketball game that was between Arizona and Oregon a couple days ago. Has this team really started to maybe hit its stride after all the turnover from last year, or there's still a ways to go?
No, there's still a ways to go. So I think the first thing is we have 7 new players. So 4 freshmen that are just learning how to play. 3 transfers that came from totally different systems. So I didn't realize like how all that comes into play as far as us being kind of behind. The Kansas game really punched us and let us know where we're at and what our deficiencies were. And it really exploited some things. The part that I really I take responsibility in all of it, but the big thing is we hadn't really played anybody yet. But that's kind of how it always is, but we still don't usually have a dip like that. Kansas just like got on us. We didn't have an answer, but when I looked back at that, like they didn't do anything I asked. We didn't follow the game plan. We were just like not doing stuff we always do. So it was just a weird game. But I'm really glad it happened, because if it didn't happen then, it was going to happen the first week in the Pac-12. Because some stuff I had been talking about, we weren't doing, lack of discipline. So I was kind of glad we got killed, because I think if we didn't get killed then, I don't think we win the first couple Pac-12 games, to be honest. So after that, then we get better. I mean, it was like a brutal couple of weeks. It was like defense for like 2 hours a day. It was hard. I was like, oh, we're going to play the way I want. We're not losing like that, and just not doing what I asked. So we had a really good game against Baylor. And so that was a tough game. I think didn't have like the best percentage. You would know all the analytics, but we're supposed to win that game, and then played well and won. So gave us some confidence. And then like a little setback with Stanford, but Stanford's better at Stanford right after Christmas. And I think we're just getting better, but we still have a ways to go.
Let me ask you about the returning players, because you mentioned all the turnover on the roster, but obviously Kate and Shayna coming back. Kate had some big baskets against Oregon after struggling from the field most of that game. Maddie had a big game over the weekend as well. Just the returning players, especially with Sam Thomas, who's been there almost as long as you have at Arizona. How have they sort of stabilized things, and have they maybe taken on a more of a leadership role?
Yeah, I think that because of so many new pieces, we didn't really have that leader on the court. It's hard when you're supposed to be that leader. Usually it needs to come from a guard or, vocal point guard. I think we didn't really have that. Like Shane is more quiet, kind of lead by example, more of a scoring guard. I think that because there were so many new players, even if like, let's say Lauren Fields was more of a leader at Oklahoma State, it was hard to come into a new team and lead that has been a team that's been really successful. So I think everybody's kind of finding a way to contribute by committee. I wouldn't say we have some like diehard like leader. I think Kate's one of the most vocal. I think Maddie's the most vocal, but like diehard puts you on their back. We don't have that. I think, I think about some of the best teams I've coached here. We had like that one player that can like take over a game. That was Ari, or we had the one that was like a huge lockdown. That was Sam. So I think people were trying to find their roles, and we're still getting into that, but we don't really have an all-star, which is good and bad. Bad when you're in crunch time, when you're down 12 points or 3:30, like who's going to get buckets, but good in the sense that it's by committee. So then when you have 4 or 5 people in double digits. So I think it's like, before we didn't have that with Ari. We had one person having 20 and like a couple others having 10. So I think now it's like figuring out who's going to be consistent. Are we going to be able to manufacture with, 4 or 5 players getting double digits? Who's going to be that star that steps up? And for us, I've seen different players, which I think in the end will be better, because you can't just shut down a player. But I think in the interim, it makes it hard because we don't have that. But we're getting better defensively. We're not great defensively yet. We're getting better. But the thing is, we are much better offensively. So if you look at 12 points a game, shooting 37%, I've never coached a team that can actually score like that. But then it's like defensively, we struggle a little bit. So it's kind of like last year, I was like, oh, we can't shoot, but we can defend. This year, I'm like, oh, we can't defend, but we can shoot. So it's like finding that, getting now this team, because it's hard to teach shooting. You can teach angles of defense. You can scheme like different types of defense. So I think, team defense will improve and just getting better. But we have a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing though, Coach, when you think about that comeback on Friday night, like you guys were down and out, and you lose that game, things could have spiraled, gone into, you could have lost to Oregon.
For sure.
Shane and I were talking about earlier, was that a season-changing comeback in your opinion?
I think so because that's a pivotal point. Like we had lost to Stanford, and so how are we going to bounce back from that? And it showed the character of our team and our resiliency, because are we going to hang our heads because we got pounded on the boards by 20 something and got killed, or and they controlled the game the whole time? Like the score of the game wasn't an indication how the game was. We got killed. Or are we going to lay down, or are we going to go back and beat another good team that's pretty underrated, that's coached really well at home with a little bit of pressure, right? Because you really have to take care of home games and steal some on the road. Mm-hmm. So when I saw, and then like you had a really big high on Friday, winning and stealing a game in the last 3 minutes, we probably shouldn't have won. And then like going back, and Oregon's a really high octane offense. So taking care of those two, and then now we go on the road. So I think that if we didn't beat Oregon State, I don't think we'd beat Oregon.
At what point in that Oregon State game did you actually think you were going to win?
Well, after we scored 8 points in straight, I was like, oh shoot, okay. At first I thought it was a lot of time. I was on the bench we got to manufacture some points, but we're not great at certain presses. Or what the hard thing is with this year for me is if I put a shooting lineup in, we can't guard anybody. But if I put a defensive lineup, we aren't as smart, we can't shoot it. So it's getting that offensive unit to be able to hide someone that I know isn't the best defensive player. So that's been it's helped me become a better coach, because I really have to be specific with this team, and we have to strategize a little bit more. And have to be really simple because there's a lot of new people and it's a whole new system defensively and offensively. But I didn't think until we had a couple of those steals. I think the half court steal started it, which led to the Lauren layup, Shayna led to Lauren layup, and then the steals off that press, which we got them in bunches. So then I thought, okay, there's a chance, because I thought it was 3 minutes. It was time's running out.
The home crowd idea, and I mentioned this as well before we started, is that when I covered the team almost 20 years ago now, they're a good team. They finished tied for the Pac-10 championship, but they had maybe half the fans in the arena that you all have now.
We used to have a couple thousand. We were top 16.
Yeah, I think when Stanford came to town, it was 4,000, which was a big deal. But just how big a deal is that? And I wasn't at the games, but I see the fans, going crazy. The whiteout against Oregon. It definitely sounded like a traditional men's game. How big of a deal is that in close situations like that?
It's huge. I think it's hard to win without that. We have momentum. It's really loud, and we have 8,000 fans. I think it's the equivalence of 14,000 men. Our fans are, I don't know if it was probably the same demographics, but I think a little different, younger families, really loud. When we have 10,000, it seems like a sellout. I thought we had more until I saw the Jumbotron. But I think also our fans would have been better, but there was a game Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we were the Sunday at 5. I think when you come to Stanford here, I think it's going to be sold out. It helps us win games at home. It really does. We don't lose a lot at home. That Kansas game, we had only lost a couple games in a few years.
Yeah.
So, and we hadn't lost that bad, I think, probably since my second year here. I don't remember the last time we lost that bad. So I think, we win. I think it's an incredible environment. I think it's one of the best in the country. We're number one in the Pac-12 in attendance. We were 6th last year. We've already surpassed that. So our goal is to be 4th, but we're talking 4th nationally. When I got here, there was 300 season tickets.
Amazing. Yeah.
So it's pretty. I know you have to win, that comes along with it, but I think our players have done a phenomenal job of getting out in the community and being nice to people and actually taking the time to talk to people. And I think that's contagious, and people love being a part of the program.
Your upcoming trip against Utah and Colorado, and Utah is off to a fantastic start. The men traditionally have had a really rough time on that trip for a number of reasons, including the elevation. What's that trip like from your perspective, and just what's it going to take to be successful against those teams?
That trip is brutal. If you'd ask any men's or women's coach in Pac-12, that's the trip you don't want to take. When it's not on your schedule, you're yes. Elevation, cold. We're used to sunshine here. We're like wimps in the cold. So it's just cold. It's long. It's it's just, I don't know. It's just hard. And then you see stuff posted, elevation, beware. It's so annoying. But I think the elevation is more of a factor the second game. But when you're there playing, first of all, they both play phenomenal at home. But when you're there, it's they know it and they try to run you into the ground. So if you're playing Utah or Colorado, it is they're trying to throw a baseball pass at the beginning because they know they want to run the crap out of people. And our girls you have to get your second win. But it's tough to play there. The good thing is all 7 of the new players don't even know what that's like. It's good and bad. So they're going to be new to it. So But I think we won there before. We won some big games. I think if we play our defense, besides playing the last 3 minutes of the game, I think we'll have a chance to win. If we don't and we start off slow, we're going to get ran out of Boulder and Salt Lake City. So we have to play.
Do you think that it makes it harder this weekend, the fact that Colorado is not playing ASU, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
That sucks. I mean, okay, it is what it is.
Right.
It's good that we have to forfeit now, because I hated that COVID miss. Like, that was annoying, and it affects a lot of us long term down the stretch. But like, yeah, that sucks. Not as much for Colorado because they had to prepare for us anyways. But like, Utah is the number 6 in the country, and they get to sit there and prepare for us all week. Yeah, that stings. I mean,
you're still going to beat them. Shane and I are both picking you to win. I'm just spoiler alert. We're picking you to win.
The Wildcat Country curse.
What's our chance? 0.0000.
just tell your players they have absolutely no shot.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, Coach, you go in those ESPN box scores, they have everyone, you click on win probability. And Shane's the one that pointed this out. I didn't even know. I totally forgot about this. And they said you can scroll your mouse over, and they gave you a 0.3% chance to win with under 4 minutes left. And you proved them wrong. And
no one told your team. Yeah.
So if they
look at that sometimes, not yeah. But I'm gonna have someone look at that. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's so you can go back to every game that you coach, and it shows you. That? Yeah. Every box score has that on ESPN. For my knowledge, right, Shane?
Maybe
right?
Yeah. Maybe that's bulletin board material there. You get the little graphic that says 0.03 or something.
Will it have our probability of winning at Colorado, or is it in game?
No, it's in game.
In game, yeah.
Yeah, because it'd be cool if there was a problem. Like, this is the probability of statistically.
You know what? They do that for the men's. I don't know if they have that for the women though on ESPN. They should, but I don't think they do for the women.
I'm gonna. This is a weird question, but as I said, you've come on with us. Have you ever looked at a betting line when your team is involved in it?
No, but it's funny. Because I don't bet. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I have nothing to do with betting. But it's
Eric could hook you up.
Well, someone will usually tell me after the game. Like, someone told me, I think Baylor had a 77% of beating us by 13 or something. I was like, who says that? But I didn't know that was such a thing. People tell me, I'm always surprised.
Yeah, in the off season, when we have you on again in the off season, we'll do gambling 101. No, I'm kidding. Just wanted to point that out, though. No, you never know. Against Stanford, obviously they're going to be favorites, but I'm really curious to see what the betting line will be with you guys at Utah.
Text me when you find out, because I'm just curious.
Yeah,
because I think it's cool when you hear that. It's just wow. I wonder how people it's smarter people that come up with those.
Yeah, I'm like you, Adia. I don't gamble. I live vicariously through Eric. Let me ask you about recruiting, which obviously you've had a ton of success in as well. Back a few years ago, getting someone like Kate Reese was an anomaly, and now you're getting so many 4 and 5 stars. But I want to ask you about the world of NIL and how maybe that's impacted women's basketball, because we hear about it with football and with men's basketball. And NIL, is that an aspect, when you go to talk to potential Arizona commits, is that something that you really have to talk about and know about and mention possibilities about?
Absolutely. It's one of the most important things. I think the first thing is, can you win within a school? Usually all the high level kids, they can win at the schools they're looking at. The second thing is NIL. It's huge. For instance, we lost a couple kids. We lost some kids to South Carolina, they're a better program. But they could offer to a high school kid in December $25,000. We don't have that capability. I'm working on it. We got our first team deal yesterday, because there was individual deals, but
yeah.
What's it called? It was Goat. Well, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it yet, but it was an energy drink, and that's owned by Jerry Rice. So that was our first team thing. But we're trying to get deals, and I think that this is a great market too, because it's 1 million people. There's 1 million people here, and we don't have all this competition. We don't have MLB, WNBA, NBA, everything. So,
not like ASU does.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So I think that you're seeing a lot of smaller deals. Sam killed it with that stuff. Sam probably made $40,000 in a year, but she's also smart, and she's really out in the community. She's a 4.0 student. Hold on, you guys. I'm on a podcast. Thank you. No, you may not. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You have to leave me real quick.
But can I stay?
No, sorry.
I think it's a tradition for Mateo to crash our our interviews. That's fine.
I know. It's like,
she's
yeah, say hi. You can say hi and bye.
But wait. Can I please stay? Because
I'm on a podcast right now. So
I got a 3-year-old downstairs. I totally get it. He can come upstairs at any moment.
Sorry.
That's okay. I was going to ask you how the family was doing anyway.
Yeah, well, he's great. 7-year-old champ, 7-year-old problems. But yeah, no, I think what was the question?
Talking about NIL deals.
Yeah, no, super important. I think just what you can offer, because if someone can, so no, this is an area I think it's really important. Okay, give a player like Helena. Here's an example. Helena has a COVID year, she can come back. She's one of my biggest recruits right now. Love her. Now she has a chance. She's Spanish. She has a Spanish passport. She can play in Europe as a community player. So she has a chance to go pro next year. She can probably make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. So for me, I want her back really badly. She's such an important part of what we do. She's a great player, one of the smartest. Like if I had the ability to say, okay, you can make $4,000 a month here, she's gonna stay here and get her master's. But like even like a person like Esmeri, like they want to go and like make money. Trinity and Ari. From 2 years ago, they would have stayed if they knew the NIL stuff was going through. They would have been more in college and they wouldn't have pros their first year. So like, It's a huge selling point when you have that in your back pocket. If we're Texas Tech or South Carolina, if you have the ability of like a group of donors getting in and could give your players a couple $1,000 a month, it is program changing. I think what you're going to see our sports evolve to is those big schools like the A&Ms and Tennessees and South Carolina that have like the oil money or big SEC football money. You're going to see all of those teams get the best players later because they're going to be able to pay like $50,000 to his top point guard. I mean, it's like, and then we're not going to be able to unless something changes. So it's like, it just hurts. So NIL is real and it's important.
But I didn't think about that because and I guess one of the reasons we had heard that Dalen Terry was thinking about coming back is because if he was a second round NBA draft pick, he could make more money coming back to Arizona, but he banked on himself being a first rounder. So crazy how much times have changed and how everything that was
on the men's side because there's more money. But Jed is like, it's huge for Jed.
Well, yeah, you have to. It has to be part of your.
You won't compete. You'll never. I mean, I think it's like I want to say Texas A&M linemen. Didn't they get $150,000 each?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. Eric, do you know?
There was a quarterback last year who's now at Texas. He left high school early, Adia, to go to Ohio State, got $1 million and didn't play a snap. And now he's starting at Texas, Quinn Ewers. And that's just and there are guys making more than that. I mean, I think Bryce Young at Alabama was making multiple million. He may be taking a pay cut going to the NFL.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it's like you could say if you could stay for 6 years, you would. Like that's why I think you're going to see it really affect women in a couple of years. And the thing is, like the sad part of the reality of it is, it's going to really affect athletic departments because you're seeing all these rules change where like there's rules that are coming in effect, like they're being voted on right now, where it might be unlimited visits, all these things. That all cost money.
Yeah.
There's the Austin money. We're fully funded Arizona Austin money. That's another like a couple $1 million. Like, and if you're not fully funded, you can't compete. So all of these things cost the school more. And if you're going to a donor that owns, like, let's say Jim Click, he gives $10 million a year. I'm just making this up, but let's say he gives $10 million to Arizona. He's not like going to go give 10 to Arizona and 10 to NIL. He's giving 10. He may then get 7 to NIL, 3 to Arizona. So that's less money out of that pot. So it's not like people are coming up with this double, triple money just for NIL. They just want to allocate it differently because they'd rather give it to student athletes a lot than the school. So it's gonna hurt programs. I think you're gonna see college athletics change in the next 5 years because of it. I really do.
Like that in the transfer portal, it's like everything's changed irrevocably. So it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, we have 7 new players.
Right. There's that too. And along those lines, my last question for you, I want to talk about Jade LaVille since she's played ASU since and beaten ASU since she's been with Arizona, but going up there pretty soon. I think it's after the Utah and Colorado trip. I think y'all are going to ASU after that.
Yeah, if they're healthy by then.
If they're healthy enough by then, but we haven't spoken to Jade about it. But just if you talk to her about like what it might be like to go back there and because I mean it's pretty unprecedented for it's one thing for a coach to do it. It's another thing for a player to make that move in the rivalry.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't talk to her back because I don't want to make something a big deal. No. And she's such a worker. I don't think she really cares. And I think it's also different because she wasn't at ASU for years. I think if she would have been there for 4 years, I think that would have been more meaningful. But she wanted to stay in Arizona. Her dad lives in Phoenix. So, and then she wants to win and go pro. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but
well, I mean, with Charlie leaving too, I'm sure that made it easy.
Yeah. So it makes it's not as big as a rivalry because, Natasha's new.
Yeah.
But you're seeing that more. A player just did it from UCLA. She went from UCLA to USC.
It's weird to me to see an do you like the interconference transfer or no?
Not really, but I don't really care anymore because it's the whole transfer thing is just, it's like annoying, the whole thing. But so in a way, as a coach, it's annoying because you invest so many years in these players, you bring them here. But then on the flip side, you can also get good really fast. So I think that you're going to see all the top, I'd say top 15 programs that have stud freshmen. You're going to see everybody lose freshmen because to win, if you're a good program, you're not playing freshmen 30 minutes a game. But they all expect to play 30 minutes a game. Nope. So you're going to see every program lose a couple. So it's going to be romper room. And then people are going to move around. Well, there's these new rules where when they transfer, if they're undergrad, you have to keep them all 4 years. But I don't think people are going to really care. Mm-mm. But I think you're going to see so much more movement. I think next year you see more movement. We're seeing it a lot. Like Oregon players went to Oregon State. I sent a couple of players in the Pac-12. Someone went to Oregon. Mm-hmm. I mean, someone went to not Oregon, Colorado.
Bendu went to Oregon State.
Went to Oregon State, and another player went to USC. So I lost 3 in conference. But I mean, sometimes you didn't want them anyways. The other thing is you play against them. If they're that good and they're playing for you, they're not leaving.
True.
So some of the players I was like, bye. Like I never didn't sign up. Okay, so here's an example too. The 2 players that went in conference that are undergrad, I could have been in a Kyra situation with Kentucky. I signed it because I'm like, you can go play. I don't care about playing against you. So like with Aaronette Vonleh, I signed the release for her to play right away. I could have not signed it. And then with Coy Love, I signed it for SC. Because I'm like, at the end of the day, they're student athletes, they're kids. Right. If you're happy at Arizona, like we can recruit. We're going to be good, like with or without you. So if you love it and you want to be here and you want to help us win, if you want to go down the street to ASU, I'll sign it. If you want to go to USC, I'll sign it. Because you're probably not someone that was a main factor here and it's not willing to wait. So it's like, it is what it is. Which is
your honesty is so refreshing, and that's why we always enjoy having you on. You're a legend. I'd give you, if I were in charge, I'd give you a lifetime contract. I've told Shane that. I just want to point one last thing out, Coach. I looked at since I brought up gambling earlier, your title odds are 60-1. You are tied for the 15th highest odds in the country at 60-1 to win it all.
Win it all where?
To win it all, to win the national championship.
Who made? Are you serious?
So South Carolina is a little over even money. Stanford is a little short of 3-1. Utah is 35-1, and you're 60-1.
Oh, so that's not even close.
I'm just saying, there's an opportunity if you're listening to this.
More bulletin board material.
So Utah is 35-1.
Yep.
Wow. Where do you see that at?
That's at FanDuel. It's called FanDuel, and yep, you can take a look at that, and it's bulletin board material. That's why I'm telling you about it.
What's South Carolina?
South Carolina is 1.25-1, so it's basically 5 to 4 odds. Yeah.
Dang. So what about does it say for the Pac-12 championship?
It doesn't. It just gives the overall champion.
So 60-1. What's that equivalent? Because they won't understand what that is.
So if you bet $60 or if you bet $1 and you guys win, you get 60 in return.
But what is that percentage wise? So we have a 2% chance.
Somewhere in that ballpark. I'm not good at that part of the math, but yeah. So
wow, I can't believe people do that kind of stuff.
Oh, people! This is a big thing. I mean, people and your odds fluctuate throughout the year.
They have way too much time.
I'm telling you, I work in the industry, so I get it, and it's.
Eric, when I have questions, I'm texting you.
You can
listen, world.
Coach. I want to say one last thing. When I saw and I texted Shane right away. Monday morning, I had a new Twitter follower, and it was you. I was like, "Oh my God, we're doing something good here on Wildcat Country."
Seriously,
and I'm bad at that. I don't even follow back. I don't look. Sometimes I look on my Instagram. It's 100. I don't do that because it's I have no strategy. This is sad, but I have no strategy with social media. I put my kids on there way too much. I don't care if the picture is cute, if I look like this or I look like that. I need to do better at branding. I was telling somebody yesterday, I need to work on my branding because I just do whatever I want. I have misspelled words all the time because I'm usually driving and tweeting, which you shouldn't do.
It's okay. I do too.
Kids walking. I need to step up my game.
I will keep you updated as to your championship odds as they fluctuate. So if you beat Utah and Colorado this weekend, you're going way up. I'm telling you that.
Yeah, we might be 30. We might be 45 to 1.
45 to 1. There you go. Thanks again, Coach. Good to talk to you as always.
Thank you, guys.
Shane, as we promised, once again, I'm still speechless. And we did this interview earlier, but I mean, first of all, thanks to Coach Barnes and thanks to Bill Walton. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, and thanks to Adia for continuing to make time for us. You know, we talked to her on the original version of this podcast back when she was still building the team. They had an alumni event in Scottsdale. We got to talk to her when she was first hired, and it's great to see what she's done and continued success there. And then Bill Walton, that was something. And we had 40 minutes, and I think we hit that exact 40-minute window, like as soon as the time was up. So that was almost perfect, even though I think there was a little bit of panic, unlike like another interview we did a couple months ago that we won't talk about. But the one thing he did say, and I know he went sideways just a few times, but the one thing he did say about, you know, playing together as a team versus playing together as an individual, it made me think back to the DeAndre Ayton season when it seemed like the team was maybe a bit cliquey then.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the reason for their lack of success in the NCAA tournament, or it was because all the off-court stuff just caught up to them. But I think that if you take one thing away from everything he said, I think that's a valid point. And Tommy Lloyd's mission is to get these guys to keep playing for each other, especially when things go bad, unexpectedly bad, like they did against Washington State.
Great point. Just really thankful to have both of our guests. Biggest show that we've had, in my opinion, on Wildcat Country. So we hope you enjoyed it. A couple of quick reminders. This segment brought to you by DT Sports Cards. Shane, on January 28th, they're having a card show in the East Valley. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the East Valley the Chandler Gilbert card show. I will post the address. I mentioned it last week. I'll post the address on my Twitter page. I'll be a seller there for the first time, so you want to look at some cards. I'm big on buying and selling hockey cards, which I know is really popular in Arizona, but I'll have plenty of those as well as some other stuff. So come say hi. DT Sports Cards. They are one of our sponsors. They sponsor the segment. They do a great job of submitting cards to PSA on your behalf, looking at cards and making sure they're look good enough to be graded, and they give you their opinion on whether you should send it in or not. So I've been benefited greatly from their service, which is why we added them as a sponsor. So yeah, come check us out and check out dtsportscards.com if you're looking to get some cards graded.
And I'm pointing to that sign in my background if you're watching on YouTube, the DT Sports Cards logo. All right. And also just want to point out, as we will for the next month or so, that Shane and I are going to be the MCs at the East Valley Chapter Toast and Taste event on Friday, February 17th at the Phoenix Airport Marriott, I believe it is. Go to alumni.arizona.edu and their events page to look up that. And we'd love to see you there and meet some of you at either event face-to-face. All right, couple quick things. We're going to go here rapid fire, Shane. Baseball throwback unis. Like them, love them, hate them, thoughts?
Love them. Unlike the basketball ones, the original ones that they showed that I think still look too much like the Zags unis. Love the baseball ones. Fantastic.
I love the basketball throwback unis. Those need to be implemented. These other ones are not good. I'm going to join the Shane Dale bandwagon there and say not good. All right. FanDuel came out with their championship odds next year for football. ASU is 300 to 1. Arizona is 500 to 1. What sense does this make, Shane?
None. I mean, who knows? Especially, we don't know what ASU is going to look like. I mean, I know they upgraded at quarterback. They got a lot of new transfers, but I think that's more on reputation than anything else. I mean, Arizona at 500 to 1 is fine, but ASU being higher, if nothing else, I figured they'd be about the same.
Could Arizona have played a closer game on Monday night than TCU did against Georgia?
I don't think it could have been much worse. You know, for nothing else, yeah, Georgia would have taken its foot off the gas in the fourth quarter anyway. No, I want to say Arizona would have mustered 2 touchdowns. You know, Jacob Cowing would, and assuming Dorian Singer were still on the team, would have made some circus catches. You know, and so I think Arizona could have doubled what TCU scored. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. But would Georgia have doubled what they scored against Arizona's defense? That's the question. All right, finally, Shane, it's a big weekend of games on the road for both teams. Out of the 4 games, men's team at the Oregon schools, women's team at the mountain schools, how many does Arizona win?
going to go with 3. And I'm going to make a semi-bold prediction that the women sweep at Utah and Colorado. They're going to be tough games. I think Utah's a bit overrated. I think that the ladies are hitting their stride right now. So I think they go, and even though it's always a tough place to play, Utah and Colorado for the men or the women, I'll make a semi-bold prediction and predict that. I think Arizona, the men, I think they split. I think they beat Oregon State. I think they lose to Oregon. I think it's going to be another rough week or so until they finally start to right the ship.
All right, I'm going to kind of hedge my prediction here, so I hate to do this. I agree with you about the women. I think they're going to sweep Utah and Colorado. I think they're going to do what the men couldn't, and that's win at Utah. Fortunately, the men don't have to play at Colorado, which is always a tough place to go. But I think the women's team sweeps. I think if the men's team beats Oregon State by double digits, as they should, they're going to win on Saturday. Okay. If they don't, I think they lose. So that's my key. I want to see a blowout.
You think they win both or they lose both, or they win close and then they lose?
I think they're going to beat Oregon State regardless. But if it's under 10 points, is the margin, I think they lose on Saturday. I think if it's over 10 points, I'm taking Arizona on Saturday. That makes sense.
Fair. That's fair. I like it. Yep.
We're not keeping track of this like football. I won't even bring up records. We'll talk about that next fall.
I'll mention it if you're wrong next week. Otherwise, I'll forget all about it.
Fair enough. Want to thank our great guests on this show, and thanks Shane Dale for booking a great show. Bill Walton, who is one of a kind. Adia Barnes, who's also one of a kind. And it was something. I hope you guys enjoyed listening as much as Shane and I enjoyed doing these interviews and doing the show, as always. So for Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.